So Alex, welcome. I'm super excited to be here to talk to you about a revolutionary new product called WorldPhone. We're launching it tomorrow, and what I've got a few slides just to talk through the reason why we're launching it and what it does, and I think I'll just step straight into it. I want to first get you to think about, what does a long distance phone call cost you today? If you think back a couple of decades, it was a really expensive thing to go and make calls to people on a long distance basis, or when you're traveling. It was really hard just to get any kind of telephony.
It was super expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it was a luxury good, right? And now, thanks to competition, you get basically the cost per minute, and you know, for the carriers, and the price per minute has come down to a point where you've got very, very cheap calls anywhere you want, all around the world, on fixed networks. It's not like that everywhere in the world though, and what you see is when you start going into the mobile networks world, that call costs increase, and you get them both for international calls and also for roaming calls. Costs are much, much higher. In fact, when you think about the cost per minute as a ratio of for mobile to fixed for these international and roaming calls, it's as much as 100 to 1 in terms of the international call cost ratio to fixed international call cost ratio. So you're talking about dollars per minute versus cents per minute. And that's really surprising. You sort of think about that for a second and you say, why is there such a high difference? And I'll get to that in a moment. The bottom line is that carriers around the world are making the billions and billions of dollars, mainly because also people are moving more. The world is globalizing, and you're getting business travelers, for example. You can just see here spending more than $30 billion a year on voice roaming alone. So we thought this was an interesting problem to tackle, and we're launching WorldPhone to address that problem. You might think of various different solutions. We've talked to lots of customers out there, and we know that they try various things. First thing that they start thinking about is what I call the box of SIMs strategy.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you have a little box of SIMs, and you put one in your phone each time you go to a different country. The problem with SIMs is that they're very regional. If you think about it, you go to, say, Buenos Aires for 3 weeks, you buy a local SIM, you tell everybody this is your local number. At the end of the 3 weeks, you come back here, what do? You keep on taking calls on that SIM? No, you tell them, oh, sorry, I'm not using that SIM anymore. And so there's a lack of permanence and a lack of continuity with any SIM. If you think about all SIMs, they're actually incredibly regional and temporary and not permanent from that point of view if you're a busy traveler. You could also think about using the likes of the popular VoIP applications that are around the world. The issue mainly with these is that when you try to call people that are a long way away from you, going over the internet, you go over more and more router hops, and every router hop you go over introduces a percentage chance that there's some big data file that's passing through at the same time and interrupts your call. And you find the reliability is just not the same as you would have on a normal cellular network. So we've got the solution. I'm humbly calling this fixed mobile convergence phone for Windows 10.0. We're not really going to do this, but I thought it was such a good picture I couldn't resist putting it up there. Really what we're going to do is we're going to talk to you about a new business model for telcos. This is what WorldPhone's all about. And over the last couple of years, if you think about, in particular, people traveling, business travelers have 3 core needs. They need to get from A to B, they need to have a place to stay, and they need to be able to communicate with people that they're visiting and also people back home. Those are kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the things that matter. In the last couple of years, some interesting companies have turned up with business models that are taking advantage of other people's types of service provider capabilities. So if you just look at the traditional way of servicing these needs, just taking transportation, you could do anything from walk to the meeting, like we did today, through to catching a limo. You could stay with friends, through to staying in a 5-star hotel. And what Uber and AirBNB and companies like them are doing is they're actually leveraging non-traditional assets to deliver a better service at a lower cost. In telco land, we have something very similar. So we have everything from free, but not super reliable, to the premium cellular roaming everywhere you go. And there isn't a company yet that's actually delivering a shared economy model for delivering telco services. So
until today.
There's a big question mark about this. And so today what we're announcing is WorldPhone, which is the consumer-focused proposition that delivers shared economy access to telco networks all around the world, fixed networks, hundreds of them. And by doing that, we're giving them access to those lovely low-cost fixed line minutes that I talked about earlier, and allowing you to bypass in a very high-quality way the mobile networks that are existing for the purpose of roaming and things. This isn't an easy thing to do. If you think about why roaming works and why they're able to extract so much dollars, so much cost per minute out of customers, it's because it's very easy to roam. You go from one country to another and it's absolutely seamless. You turn your phone on, it just works. A bit like a duck gliding across the pond, there's a furious sort of waddling of feet going on underneath there. And so there are network protocols sitting between the cellular operator networks that are making this all possible. In the carrier, the fixed networks, those protocols never got developed. Why would they? They're fixed. People aren't moving around. But with Wi-Fi and 3G access, these sorts of protocols that you see as standard in the cellular networks, it would be a really interesting idea to scale them and make them work on fixed networks. And so we've spent the last couple of years doing exactly that, taking the whole cellular roaming protocol stack and applying it to fixed network providers' networks all around the world, and then building fantastic apps that let you access those services as seamlessly as you could on your normal phone. Today, we have a global footprint. We've spent something like 30,000 hours of engineering time building this platform, filed 12 patents in 5 geographies around the world. 3 of them are just about to be granted to us in Australia, which is great news. And anywhere you go in the world, pretty much, these bubbles are quite conceptual. We actually haven't found anywhere where we can't deliver a service to a customer yet. The app will test the quality of the network, and if it doesn't like the quality, it will go back and say, you're better off using cellular at the moment. So far, virtually everybody that we've seen on our platform is running in what we call blue mode, which means they can access our services. And this big network is really the embodiment of the shared economy. We're working with local providers on the one hand that have these individual VoIP networks, SIP networks, or in the corporate sense, corporate SIP trunk networks, so they're providing services to offices like this around the world, and roaming travellers. Up till now, these guys have been just passing overhead, interacting with these, or not interacting with these corporate networks like neutrinos. Just basically not having a way of being technology enabled to use these great networks that are existing everywhere. Turns out there's about 20,000 of these networks worldwide. Yeah? So an interesting proposition to connect through. And so WorldPhone and the network underneath WorldPhone is really bridging the gap between these really high quality but low cost providers on the one hand, and roaming business travellers, and anyone making an international call for that matter on another hand. Yeah. With WorldPhone, you've got to think about, well, how do you deal with payments, and how do you deal with billing, and how do you deal with getting paid? And as an end user, how simple can we make it for the end user? And it's the simplest possible way. You just use your iTunes account. Plug it in. We then send the payments to the landline telco partners, and the users can buy minutes or subscriptions or numbers straight off their iTunes account in-app without having to go onto a website or do anything complicated with credit cards straight away as they do it. We have a big brother for WorldPhone we call Corona, and I just wanted to spend a few seconds positioning where this fits. Corona is something we launched last year. We've integrated into some of the largest corporates in the world, with 75,000 plus employees. We integrate very deeply into the corporate phone network, but it's at the end of the day a very corporate CIO-driven proposition. WorldPhone is our first consumer product, but we still think it has an interesting role to play with corporates. With WorldPhone, we can build clusters of users within organizations. And then when we go to sell to the CIO, it's not a question of asking them to think about whether this works. We already know it works. Their customers are already using it. But what we're having is a discussion about simplifying their billing now, about lots of individual expense claims rolled into one centralized bill. And that's a materially different proposition from going and cold calling these people to begin with. So we believe with any company in the world in the kind of VoIP and shared economy sort of voice services space, it has a proposition that spans the entire gamut from an individual end user all the way through to a multinational, multi-sided organization. Technology solutions fitting that whole dynamic range of potential customers. None of this would matter if we didn't deliver a fantastic user experience. And I noted with interest your focus on user experiences earlier, Alex. We've just built what I consider is the most gorgeous user experience that you'd ever get on a VoIP phone ever. It's the user experience that you want for telephony. It adheres very, very closely to the telephony model. And you can just see from this that these 3 slides here, panels, show you how similar it is to the existing user experience. You can drill all the way down into contacts and launch a FaceTime call from within our app. What other VoIP application actually allows you to do that? And we're releasing this, we said early June, but it's now in July, and we're happy to release it today. And what we'd like to do now is give you a quick demo of the solution.
Let's go.
So time for a demo. And what I'll do is unplug here.
Just as an aside, whilst you're doing that, I use an app called Reflector 2, which allows you to do mirroring straight to your Mac. You don't have to unplug anything. You can just have.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like a nifty device. It's like it turns your Mac into an Apple TV equivalent for streaming.
Oh, cool.
But the old-fashioned wired way works as well. There's no software to get in the way. It just works. Yeah, so there are merits to both.
What we have here is my personal phone. I have lots of apps. A couple of calendar invites have come in while I've been away. So what I'd like to do now is launch WorldPhone. You can see here we have WorldPhone sitting down next to my normal phone. I'd encourage anybody that uses our app to do that, because it just reminds you, makes you mindful that there's a good alternative to using the regular phone app. And when we launch it, what you get is a gorgeous, what I call very Zen-like user experience. We've taken away all the frippery, all the display of buttons and things, just to give you the fundamental display that you need to make calls.
Nice and clean.
You can make calls just as beautifully as plus. So there's an example of the dialing. The formatting is beautiful. It understands dynamically where I am. So if I clear this and start dialing just an 8-digit number for Sydney, it knows how to break up the digits into 2 blocks of 4 digits.
And if you travel overseas?
If I was in France, 4 blocks of 2 digits. That's my tennis date for tomorrow, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Which I'm not going to be attending because I'm over here. So you get the idea from that. Let me walk you through favourites. And you can see the favourites looks and behaves exactly the same way. There is one critical difference, and it's something we wished Apple had put into their own app. When we see you making lots of calls to your contacts, we load them into your favourites dynamically, sorted in reverse order of frequency of use. So the most frequent users come at the top. And so you can easily manage that. You can also add your own. Like my kids wanted obviously to be at the top of the list, so I ended up putting them there. But all of this works just exactly in the same way. I can delete Mike from my favourites, if I wanted to.
It'll be back.
Yeah. Oh, calling Mike. Better not do that. I can edit it, do all of that sort of stuff. So that all works pixel for pixel exactly the same way as you do on the iPhone. To the point where I can even launch a FaceTime call to my wife, just to give you an idea.
The only difference is you've got a settings button down the bottom rather than voicemail.
Yes, that's right. Yep. So there we go for that. History, exactly the same. And you can see this is just my normal history. I'm actually a real live user of this. Contacts, any changes I make in contacts on anything, come back into the app, don't need to reload it, it's completely synchronized. So
and that's synchronized with the contacts on your phone.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, everything exactly the same. Where it diverges a little bit is when we start getting into settings, and we have when you first load the app, you get an onboarding tutorial, which looks like this. I might start with this. The most fundamental thing is, unlike other VoIP apps, we take extraordinary care to make sure that the underlying network is good enough for you to make calls. If it's not, we'll tell you. Wouldn't you rather know when you've got a compromised Wi-Fi network with lots of packet errors, so that you don't end up making a bad call?
Better to know.
And so we do dynamic ranging and checks on the, and you probably saw earlier, it went temporarily green while I was doing a little check, went back again, so I'm happy again.
Yeah. I mean, I've been overseas and made calls on Skype, and you know, it's been an atrocious call because things are dropping out, and other times it's wonderful.
Yes, and so we're trying to provide people with the decision tools to see whether it's good enough.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's riding over someone else's network, and you could be anywhere in the world. We can't control it. What we can do is tell you what we think the quality of that call will be. And so we have a really simple idea for this. You're probably familiar with SMS messages and iMessage. SMS messages are green because they're cellular, iMessages are blue because they're data. So we borrowed that color combination concept for our platform. And you'll see here blue mode on things like turn off the timer. Blue mode on buttons and the tooltip bars, also on the first 3 screens, which are favorites, contacts, favorites, history and contacts. We also do a blue shading or green shading of the navigation bar. And that also gives you a contextual hint that you're not in the native app, but it's familiar enough for you to still be productive and useful.
Sure. I notice if I'm ever on Skype and somebody rings me whilst I'm on a Skype call, it will put the Skype person on hold, and it will let them call.
So, so we play a music on hold tune for it. We're planning to blend in a bit of audio saying your call party is actually
on a cellular call, please hold for a moment.
Right.
Which is just nice. Otherwise, they get suddenly
we've
without
got some
warning.
beautiful on hold music, but we're planning to add a bit of audio to it as well.
Makes sense.
So you can see here what green mode looks like. And again, what we do is we alert the user if they try to make a call in this mode. We pop up a warning saying this will cost you, cellular rates, so that they're left in no uncertainty about what the costs are.
And so that is then going through as though you were using the iPhone's own standard dialer.
Yes, it'll actually launch a call through the dialer.
Yeah.
We're still leaving you in app, so when you come back from that call, you'll be back in our app.
Sure. And as with Skype, if you simply put your phone on airplane mode and connect to Wi-Fi, then you won't be thrown off calls if somebody rings you on cellular.
Yeah, or you can put Do Not Disturb on as well, which is another good way of doing it.
Yeah, sure.
One of the new things that we've added, and this is I think, just a fundamental piece of what we're doing here, is making you more local, but in a global way. And I'll just walk you back to the SIM example. You buy a SIM from somebody, say you're in Buenos Aires, and we'll do a demo of this in a few minutes. You go to Buenos Aires, you buy a number, and you work with people for 3 weeks. You come back here, what do you do with the SIM? What do you do with all your friends?
You put it aside, or you throw it away, or you lose it.
We have this idea of local but global numbers, where you can buy these numbers when you're local somewhere, and you can decide to keep them if you want, forever. And we have a business model we're just on the verge of kind of releasing, which allows you for very little money to buy a number, and you can keep it forever, and we won't charge you post the initial acquisition of the number.
And is this
provided that your friends and users are actually using the number.
And is that a cellular or a landline?
Initially landline, but we are seeing that we can buy cellular numbers in certain jurisdictions as well.
Because currently I have a Skype number, and every 3 months, I mean now I've set it to every year, I just pay a yearly fee for this PSTN number. It'd be nice to not have to keep paying. Would you be interested
in buying a number for life? And if people just call you every so often on it, you could keep it for as long as you want.
Well, that saves about $100 a year. So.
Yeah. So that'll be nice. iTunes is the mechanism that we're using. We are exploring other ways of doing payments, but we think this is an enormously convenient way out of the box.
And does that mean you're paying Apple 30%?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yep. Which is the way iTunes works. And so would it be similar on Android? We'll be going through the Google Play Store?
Yeah. And on our corporate offering, we already have an Android offering. We'll be looking at, we haven't announced a release date yet for our Android offering, but it's
Q3.
You can imagine we're working hard on.
Soon.
Again, for the first time, we've also introduced viral mechanisms into our product. So you can share this solution, get free minutes. We give you some bonus minutes when you download the app to begin with, just so you can play with it and verify for yourself that it works before you commit to any spend with us. If you promote it on things like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, we'll give you some free minutes as well.
Sure.
You can do that every couple of months, and then we'll reset the ability for you to do it. So every few months you can earn a couple of free minutes if you help us with promoting the app.
Sure.
And that sort of covers WorldPhone. So that was the intro. What I'd like to do now is just show you how this works, and I think you're going to love this. So you can buy minutes, and the iTunes interface is exactly like you would say have on iTunes app. You can see the buttons sort of match and do all these sort of things. It's just a gorgeous UI. You know, you can see it's bringing up Touch ID. I won't do that right now. I'll just show you how you can invite friends. Suzanne, good friend of mine who's head of marketing for IBM in Switzerland. She travels a lot. Bang, send her. Now, I'd like to show you these numbers. You can see here I've got a bunch of numbers. I have a UK number, a US number, I have an Australian fixed line number. I can pick any of these as my outbound identity in-app without going to a website and messing around with settings or whatever. As easy as this. Let's say I wanted to make my Australian Perth fixed line number my outbound ID. Really, I'll just set this. Bang. Off it goes. I can also buy numbers. So I wanted to show you this. So you could buy numbers locally. Imagine you've arrived at a destination. You have no idea what the area codes are or whatever, so we help you with that. And if I go here and look at what's nearby, having travelled from Perth, you can see there's a bunch of things that are popping up nearby in terms of geolocated numbers that we can access. You can see these are all the nice close ones, and as I go further away you get to Perth,
yep.
which is down the bottom. So what you can also do though is you can pick numbers from our global directory, and this is exposing a little bit our shared economy-like interfaces where we're now exposing the inventory of numbers from all our network partners around the world. And we have like I think 75 countries at the moment covered.
Yep. And
you can drill into any one of those and buy
pick
numbers.
a number,
So
yeah.
why don't I pick Argentina and we can
go from there.
So what we do is drill down in here. And this is running live, by the way. This isn't a canned demo. This is live queries of our partner networks. And drill down in here, and in a few seconds you'll see it again. I'll draw your attention to the UI. It's just so easy to use. And bang, just like that, buy a number. And big inventory of numbers. We can pick another country, if you want. We've got Canada. See what we've got in Canada. British Columbia. Going skiing next week, so this will be good. I need a number while I'm skiing. And bang, just like that. Bunch of numbers. And you can see the prices are different. So these are different providers providing different offers for prices. It's like a marketplace for them to advertise their connectivity services, finally enabled in the technology embodiment of this app so that they can interact with people that have international calling needs or roaming needs anywhere in the world. And we are just so excited to be bringing this to market. And the user experience so far has been fabulous.
So is it a standard call cost around the world? I can see the different monthly tariffs for renting
they're not. So yeah, the monthly tariffs are different for the numbers, but the call charges per minute. Now, if you look at a local SIM when you buy them, you typically get cost for like a roaming SIM of 43 cents a minute. We have ours at 32 cents a minute. Flat rate anywhere you go, regardless of where you are. So it's an extremely predictable price for that. And so if you're doing ad hoc calling to people, I think that's a pretty reasonable price. When you look at roaming rates around the world, and they obviously vary, and there's roaming packs and bundles and flat rate plans and everything. But when you look across the world, the average price tends to be in the several dollars per minute. I just looked at Singapore yesterday, and it was on the order of $5 Singaporean per minute for calls to almost everywhere. It's just incredible that you can sort of see such high charges being levied against people. And so we think this app is liberalising and democratising somehow the ability for people to make these calls anywhere. And post presentation, after the video, I'd like to show you a little bit of our early analytics data. We've been running some test marketing programs for this app around the world for the last 5 days prior to launch, and we've seen some amazing results, which I'd like to show you post the presentation. That gives you a quick overview of WellPhone. I'm so happy to be here to launch it and present it to you, and hope you all download it off the App Store and play with it and use it. There's 15 minutes free when you go to download it, and hope you have a great time and great experience using it on an ongoing basis. And
just quickly, with WellPhone, you're not buying a WellPhone SIM. You're using whatever your current SIM is.
You could use any SIM.
You can use any SIM. You could go to another country and put a different SIM in there. Because I mean, the main competitor is obviously going to be these. You have a number of these companies now with global SIMs, trying to offer just the one. And,
that's it. Yeah, the real issue is you get cut off from your regular SIM, but also even if you are using one of these global SIMs, you end up having a very transient relationship with the people that you're trying to have a relationship with.
Well, I went to China recently. I ported to Vodafone for the week, and then I ported back when I got back. I paid the $5 roaming a day, and you know, I mean, I was lucky. I actually kept my number, but you know, I had to do all these different things. But for me, that worked. But I mean, I guess if you're a more frequent traveller, then there's merit in this system as well.
Well, look, if you look at the frequent regional business traveller, that's a key segment for this application. That market, when you go up to Singapore or Hong Kong and you have lunch with somebody up there, literally they're pulling one phone after the other out of their pocket.
You see them
4 or 5 phones, and it's the phones they have for each of the countries that they visit frequently. This solution collapses all those phones into one, and they can use it anywhere. And typically in those markets, also they can get an unlimited daily rate data roaming plan, which is perfect for our solution. We use that, and then basically run our call services as an over-the-top service over that data roaming plan.
And you're only being charged per usage. So if you wanted to use Skype or some other service for whatever reason, you've got the freedom to use whatever service you want.
Our minutes never expire. The ones you buy never expire.
Yeah, which is a good thing, because other networks they will.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.